The child in the snow. The winter evening had settled over the city like a heavy blanket, turning the streets into a landscape of shadows and falling snow. Marcus Bennett stood at the window of his corner office on the 42nd floor, watching the white flakes dance against the darkening sky. Below, the city lights glowed warm and golden, but up here, everything felt distant and cold. At 38, Marcus had built an empire. Bennett Technologies was his life's work, a company that had grown from a small startup in his garage to a billion-dollar enterprise. It had everything the world said he should want: wealth, power, respect. Yet as he stood there watching the storm intensify, he felt the familiar hollow ache that no amount of success could fill. His assistant had left hours ago, along with most of the staff. They'd all hurried home to their families, to warm houses and loved ones waiting. Marcus had nowhere to hurry to. His penthouse apartment was just another empty space, filled with expensive furniture and silence. He checked his watch. 7:30. He should go home, he supposed, though the thought held little appeal. With a sigh, Marcus turned from the window and gathered his coat and briefcase. The office felt even more cavernous when empty, his footsteps echoing through the halls as he made his way to the elevator. The lobby was deserted except for the night security guard, who nodded as Marcus passed. The revolving door let in a blast of frigid air, and Marcus stepped out into the storm. Snow swirled around him, already accumulating on the sidewalks despite the late hour. He'd parked his Range Rover in the underground garage, but something made him pause. That's when he saw her. On the stone steps leading up to the building's entrance, partially sheltered by the overhang, sat a small girl. She couldn't have been more than 5 or 6 years old, with blonde hair pulled back in a braid and a pink coat that was far too thin for this weather. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded in her lap, her face turned toward him with an expression of solemn patience. Marcus' heart stuttered. He glanced around, looking for a parent, a guardian, anyone. But the street was empty, the few passing cars moving slowly through the accumulating snow. He approached the child carefully, kneeling down so he wouldn't tower over her. Up close, he could see that her cheeks were red from the cold, her small frame shivering despite her stillness. "Hello," Marcus said gently. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The girl looked at him with serious gray eyes. "Are you Marcus Bennett?" she asked, her voice small but clear. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Yes, I am. How do you know my name?" "My mom told me," the girl said simply. "She said you're the only one who can help us." Marcus' mind raced. Was this some kind of setup? A prank? But looking at the child's face, seeing the genuine cold and the way her lips trembled, he pushed those thoughts aside. Whatever was happening, this little girl was freezing and alone. "What's your name?" he asked. "Sophie," she said. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Sophie. It was the name he and his late wife had chosen, years ago, before everything fell apart. Before the miscarriages, before the distance grew between them, before the car accident that took her life and left him alone. Sophie, Marcus repeated softly. "That's a beautiful name. Where is your mother now?" Sophie pointed down the street, toward the darkened mouth of an alley between buildings. "She's sick. She couldn't walk anymore. She sent me to find you. She said you'd remember her." Marcus's professional instincts warred with his concern. This could still be a scam, some elaborate scheme. But Sophie's eyes held no guile, only a child's trust and desperate hope. "Okay, Sophie," Marcus said, making his decision. "Let's go find your mother. But first, you need this." He took off his wool coat and wrapped it around the little girl. It swallowed her small frame, but at least it would keep her warm. Sophie stood and took his offered hand without hesitation. Her tiny fingers were ice cold, and Marcus felt a surge of anger at whoever had allowed a child to sit out in a blizzard. They walked down the street together, their footsteps muffled by the snow, until Sophie led him into the alley. There, huddled against the brick wall and barely visible in the shadows, was a woman. She was wrapped in a threadbare blanket, her face gaunt and pale. When the light from Marcus's phone flashlight fell on her, she looked up, and Marcus's world tilted. "Clyde," he whispered. It had been 15 years since he'd last seen Claire Davis. They'd been college sweethearts, young and full of dreams, before life had pulled them in different directions. She'd wanted to pursue art, he'd been consumed with building his first startup. They'd parted ways amicably, promising to stay friends, though like most such promises, it had faded with time. Now, looking at her, Marcus barely recognized the vibrant girl he'd known. Clyde's face was hollow, her eyes sunken with illness and exhaustion. But when she saw him, a weak smile touched her lips. "Marcus," she breathed. "You came. I told Sophie you would." Marcus knelt beside her, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "Clyde, what happened? Why are you out here?" Clyde's eyes filled with tears. "I got sick," she said quietly. "Cancer. Lost my job, my apartment. I've been trying to keep Sophie safe, but I'm running out of time. I didn't know where else to turn." She coughed, a rattling sound that made Marcus wince. "I remembered your company was here. I thought. I hoped." "Stop," Marcus said firmly. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911, his voice crisp and commanding as he explained the situation and requested an ambulance. Then he called his driver, instructing him to bring the car around immediately. Sophie had moved to her mother's side, pressing close. Claire wrapped an arm around her daughter, holding her tight. "I'm sorry," Claire whispered. "I didn't want to burden you. But Sophie, she needs someone. I have no family left, no one who can take her. I thought maybe you'd remember what we meant to each other once. That you might help her." Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest, all the walls he'd built around his heart suddenly crumbling. He looked at Sophie, at this brave little girl who'd sat in a blizzard waiting for a stranger because her mother told her to trust him. He thought about his own lost chances, his empty life, all the years he'd spent chasing success while ignoring the things that truly matter. "Listen to me, Clyde," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're not going to die. We're going to get you the best medical care available. And Sophie." He reached out and gently touched the little girl's hair. "Sophie will be safe. I promise you that. Both of you are going to be okay." In the distance, sirens wailed through the snowy night. Marcus stayed with Claire and Sophie, keeping them warm with his presence, until the ambulance arrived. He rode with them to the hospital, making calls along the way to ensure Claire would have the finest oncologists in the city. Over the following weeks, as Claire began aggressive treatment, Marcus found himself becoming a fixture in Sophie's life. He took her to and from school, helped with homework, read her bedtime stories. The penthouse that had once felt like a mausoleum slowly filled with a child's laughter and drawings taped to the walls. Clyde's prognosis was guarded but hopeful. The cancer had been caught late, but it was treatable. As she regained her strength, she watched in amazement as Marcus transformed before her eyes, or perhaps as he became the person he was always meant to be. 3 months after that snowy night, Marcus sat in Claire's hospital room while Sophie colored at a small table nearby. Clyde looked better, her face fuller, her eyes brighter. "Thank you," she said simply. "For everything." Marcus shook his head. "You saved me, Clyde. Both of you. I'd forgotten what it meant to have people to care for, a reason to come home. Sophie didn't find me that night. I think I found her." Sophie looked up from her coloring, a smile spreading across her face. "Can we have hot chocolate when we get home?" she asked. Home. The word had never sounded sweeter. "Absolutely," Marcus said, reaching out to ruffle her hair. "With extra marshmallows." As snow continued to fall outside the hospital window, Marcus Bennett finally understood that true wealth had nothing to do with money or power. It was measured in the people who needed you, the lives you touched, and the love you chose to give. A little girl sitting in a blizzard had taught him that, and he would spend the rest of his life being grateful that she had.